Hello, beautiful stars. Courtney here, Stars of the Morning Light. And this is just a nice, friendly video out there. Um, I'm going to talk about what is the Reiki Precepts and really they're principles that I have adopted into my life that normally people, way back when did not receive them unless they were taught by a Reiki master. But now in today's world, everybody can Google this stuff. It's in so many posts and whatnot, social media, that I'm thinking, okay, you don't have to go through all the curriculum and do the practices and be attuned and whatnot to receive this, at least the words. And so why not we go through them? Because this has been principles, precepts that I have adopted and really retained and sustained and really brought into my life to handle all things. I am a Reiki master teacher. I have been for quite some time now. And of course, I teach many other things and in person and online. So let's begin. Because these are tools that, because they're so accessible now, I've decided, well, let's talk about them. Because that means that they're kind of freely out there for anyone and they can benefit anyone. So if you do think that this video has benefited you, please let me know in the comments and start practicing them. This is a whole lot for inner work because, as we know, what's going on inside is reflected around. The first Reiki precept is, and you can say it as in just for today or today, whatever, right? And you can say these to yourself. And you can say them in the moment. Go back to these. These are, when I say precepts, when I say principles, you can kind of, I don't like the word rules, but it is something that you can bring into yourself and really utilize. So the first one is be not worry. Could you imagine that? If you had repeated that enough to yourself in any given situation, time, place, interaction, within and around, imagine repeating that to yourself just for today, just for this moment. Be not worry. Be not worry. And you did that over and over and over and you got now over a decade of doing it over and over and over and over again. Be not worry. And you'll notice a lot of these say be. They start with be. They don't start with I am, which I love my I am statements. But they start with be. Because to be is that presence. Reiki comes out of the Buddhist culture. And I'm not going to go into the history here because I'm not teaching it right now. We're just talking about the precepts. But it comes out of the Buddhist culture, the Buddhist religion. And there's different facets to Buddhism, by the way. But regardless, that presence that Buddha speaks about, be. So the first one, be not worry. Could you imagine, with everything you do, in every day that you have, in every form filled out, every conversation had, every task took, be not worry. The next one is be not anger. Be not anger. I think that one speaks for itself, especially as we move forward in this world. Be not anger. So normally I'm going to state one that is not necessarily a precept. But what happens is after you've practiced these precepts for so many times, and so I'll state all of them in their full. It's be not worry, be not anger, be humble, be honest in your work, be compassionate to yourself and others. Those are the Reiki precepts. But when you actually really start diving deep into the study, into the adaptation in your life, into the practice that is a living meditation. So you are essentially in some state of meditation throughout all of your days, regardless if you're walking through the grocery store, chasing after your kids, whatever you're doing, you're in some form of meditation, and that takes time to get there, but it can happen. When after a while of doing this and doing all of the work, some literature, some teachers, some Reiki lineages, because it's very much on your lineage, like who do you come down from, right? I kind of let go of that because as a true Reiki teacher, I know that Reiki is the one that does the teaching. The universal energy is what does the teaching, not so much the human. The human gives the tools, the skills, the knowledge, the know-how, the attunements, but at the end of the day, it's Reiki that teaches us. So, with that being said, I did add, be not fear. Because for me, when I say these precepts every day, and I do every day still to this day, when I say be not worry, be not anger, be not fear, it's because I know that my worry and my anger are derived from fear. Be not fear. We can lay it down. And I'm going to go broader in through these. We're going to take each one, and really when we start getting past into the fear and to the be humble, how do we apply these to all situations? So be not fear. Be humble. Be honest in your work. So be humble. By the way, many people for some reason still confuse humble with meek or being a doormat, or I come across, this is what I run into for my personality and my presence. I'm assertive. I've always been assertive. That's just part of who I am. I'm assertive. And oftentimes my assertiveness, people take for lack of being humble. And that's not the case. It's never been the case. Being humble, you can see it as remaining open, remaining as an observer, remaining as a witnesser, remaining as in that meditative state that I am in this world, but I am not of this world. A bit of detachment. Be humble as in stand in who you are, knowing that you're sharing this world with all the others. And oftentimes, like I said, at least for me, people tend to take my assertiveness and denounce the humble within it. But that's because the word humble often associated with lowering ourselves before some kind of greater God, or lowering ourself in some way. When humble does not necessarily mean that. It is the acknowledgement, it is the acceptance that I am here amongst all the others and all the things and all the nature. That I have a spot and so does everyone else. And that we remain open to service, learning, expression, all of it from ourselves and from others. Oftentimes, people might use the term, oh, I've been humbled today, when something kind of big happens, and maybe a loss of a job, or a very difficult conversation happened, or what have you, right? Oh, I've been humbled. And it's from some outside influence. It's from some outside source. And that is true. Because it is the acknowledgement that I am here, and so is everything else. And things will happen. There's often things out of my control. All sorts of stuff. So let's not confuse, and I'm just diving a little bit there, as to let's not confuse being humble with being weak. Because the word meek doesn't even mean weak, by the way. But the meanings of words are shifting. Or, a pushover. Or a, doormat. That's not what humble has ever meant. And if you are a bit more assertive, if you are more authentic, if you are more expressive, that does not mean you're not humble. It's the willingness to accept things as they are, view things as they are, and be open to change, learning, and new experiences. That's what humble really is. That you are just as equal of a player as everybody else. There is no scale within being humble, and that's the confusion, is everybody tends to hear that word and automatically that there's a scale apparently, and we get dropped down because, oh, we're humble, so we're dropping down below things. That's not what that word means. It means actually the acknowledgement and the acceptance of the equal nature to all things. And oftentimes when we think something has humbled us, it's because something has taken our ego and made it right-sized again. Humbled. Acknowledging that we are all on the same field. There is no separation between us, nature, one another, all of it. It's not your dropping down, it's your acknowledging that within. And your ego might have been too big. And so therefore you got humbled by somebody coming in, a situation coming in, finances coming in, whatever, to bring your ego back to more of a right-sized. So let's move on. Be honest in your work. Be honest in your work. Now, in Reiki, when it says work, there have been many different teachers that respond to this in various ways. I will tell you, my first teacher, she would have told you just while you're working in Reiki. And that's because I came to find out she wasn't so honest in her in the other aspects of her life. And it was like, okay. When we say work with this, in this context, be honest in your work. You can see that as be honest in your life, be honest in your service, be honest in your work, be honest in your relationships. Because the word work here really expresses and means we as humans, we are here to do something. Whatever people call their purpose, whatever people have going on, They're tasks that they do. No one is supposed to just sit around for all their days doing nothing, right? We are here to do some kind of work. But that can be in relationships, that can be in life, that can be in all of it. So when they're referring to work, they're really referring to your life. And if you're trying to adopt these principles, these precepts into your life as a living meditation, well, then to be honest throughout that every day, every moment, through whatever exchange, through whatever you're doing. And that also means be honest with yourself. All of this starts with self. Be not worry. Be not anger. Be not fear. Self. All of those are self. Be humble. Be honest in your work, your life. Every day, if you said that to yourself, could the amount of clarity of who you really are, what your goals really are, the connections you truly want to have, whatever you want to emphasize in your life work will slowly begin to appear, because you're taking the willingness and the actions and the courage to be honest with yourself and others. And finally, be compassionate to yourself and others. That again goes back to being humble. That again goes back to being honest. That again goes back to be not worry, be not anger, be not fear. Be compassionate to yourself and others. And self first. And others. So before we dive deep into that one, let's go back. We're going way back. We're going all the way to be not worry. Be not worry. Take a moment, and you can pause this video. That's why it's pre-recorded. Take a moment and ask yourself, hands to heart. Ask yourself, just hand to heart. What would your life look like without worry? Answer that. Allow your intuition to guide you. And after that answer comes through, don't stop there. Ask yourself, hand to heart, with a nice, beautiful, deep inhale, exhale. Ask yourself, are you ready to lay down worry? We live in a world where anxiety is it's at an all-time extreme level, and rightly so, beloveds. This is once again compassion to self and others. Yet it's harmful. It's harmful for our entirety. Our mind, body, soul, all of it, for ourself, and how it filters out frequency-wise, vibes-wise to everyone else. So I'm not saying there's not due cause, and I'm not saying that there's not things that really influence and perpetuate the worry. And this is the biggest one that's the most difficult. And that's why I had to ask, are you ready to lay it down? Because I do believe many people can daydream and picture their world without worry. And it feels probably great. And it's like, oh, how productive I would be, how connected I would be, oh, how free I would feel. They can picture that. But that second question, because worry becomes like our security blanket. If I don't worry about all the X, Y's, and Z's, if I don't worry about this and then handle it, or if I don't worry about this and figure out all the pitfalls that could possibly happen and all that, it becomes a security blanket that we do feel comfort from, at least in our mind, creating the illusion that we are fixed, managing, and controlling things within the sphere of worry. And then there's the others that also just have worry and it capsizes them, and it is hard to even function, get out of bed, they freeze, all of that. So getting to that second question is actually very difficult. Are we ready to lay down the worry? Because we don't know any different. We haven't allowed ourselves to experience much different. We might have little snippets, little pockets of time that, oh, I'm without worry. And we acknowledge that. And then, beloveds, that even then triggers worry to happen, doesn't it? To learn how to be okay with being okay is paramount. And what's interesting about that is we all have a different definition of what okay is. My okay is probably very different than your okay. And that's fine. So that second question, how did you answer? Did it actually raise some anxiety within you to the thought of laying down the worry? Did something in you resist, pushed back? And if that's so, compassion to self and others, right? Compassion to yourself. We just keep working on it. We acknowledge, oh my goodness, I'm in worry. And what's beautiful about that is we also then have the second precept. Be not anger. Be not anger. So oftentimes when worry starts to build and build and build and build, we do have many of those who freeze. But then they start judging themselves because they're frozen and they're not getting anything done and nothing's going to change, right? So anger does come in. Then we have the others that are trying to run around, fix, manage, and control out of the worries, out of the anxieties. And anger comes in because that is a trap. I feel trapped by all this stuff. Anger comes in. When am I ever going to get a vacation? I just need a break. When am I going to get a breather? A trap. So anger does dance with worry. It does this interesting dance. And usually, anger, if you feel anger, you're acknowledging anger, angry thoughts, anger emotions, it is to notify you that something is not jiving. Something's imbalanced. Something was offensive. Something was scary. Right? It notifies us something ain't necessarily right here. And that could be from the words that came out of your boss's mouth. That could be a loved one. That could be any of it. That could be just the state of the world right now. It's notifying us internally something's not right. And then we get angry about it. Something's not right. That's what that anger is. Hey, something's not right. Something's not right with us. Something happened. Something is happening. And then we might start worrying about it. Or we get so angry, we start backlashing or self-sabotaging just to try to get out of that trap. to get away from the worries, the anger. So, beloveds, it really boils down to be not fear. Be not fear. Be not fear. Your presence, your be, your being. B-E hyphen I-N-G. I-N-G makes everything a verb. ING makes everything a verb. It means you're in the action of, or the action happened. Being. You are in the action of your presence. You human being. You beautiful being. Be not fear. Now, I am not, I'm not ignorant. There's a lot in the world to be afraid of. There's a lot in the world that's scary. This is when, at least for this one, definitely, it's when we take a nice deep breath in, hand to heart, in this moment, be not fear. In this moment, be not fear. And for me, beloveds, whenever I am in worry or fear, because fear is kind of my default, anger, because anger is kind of my default emotion. Others, it might be sadness. It's really all the same. When we are experiencing those things, worry, anger, sadness, we're experiencing these things, the root of it is often fear. So I got into a habit many, many moons ago that when I caught my thoughts, oh, I have been raging in my mind about this one particular subject, or maybe a couple of them, for quite a while. Whoa, Courtney, you are raging. You are angry. What's going on? When I finally catch my thoughts, I catch them. I don't let them just run around rampant. When I catch my thoughts and I realize, wow, you're angry. Wow, you're actually in anxiety. You're worried about something. I then ask myself, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? Because the mind is a tricky thing, beloveds. The mind is we could be afraid of this thing over here, and the mind is going to take us all around the place. The mind is going to say, no, it's that person, it's that place, and it's this thing, and it's my leaky faucet, and it's the mind is going to also be pointing at a million different things, when in reality, it might just be this one thing hidden over here in a corner. So we got to get honest with ourselves. Be honest in your work. Be humble and understand you're angry. So what's going on? Let's bring that ego back into right-sized. What am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? My teacher would suggest asking yourself, what in me invites this to be? What in me invites this to be? But I do offer the advice that before you step into that, ask yourself, what am I afraid of? And continue to ask yourself to get to that root. Because it could say, oh, you're angry at your leaky faucet. Hasn't been fixed. You're angry at that. And it's like, I don't think I'd be raging in my head for the past 20 minutes about a leaky faucet. I know myself a bit better than that. What am I afraid of? Do it again. What am I afraid of? Get through all those thoughts. What am I afraid of? Get down to that root. What am I afraid of? And then when you identify it, ask yourself, is this real or is this imagined? Because there is a huge percent and a vast extent of what we're afraid of is not actually happening in the moment. It is a projection into the future. It is fears from the past. What am I afraid of? Is it playing in your imagination? Is it real or is it imagined? Now, if fears from the past are real and they happened, well, then we move into the acceptance. We move into, yes, that happened. It happened. And I'm not saying to not love yourself through it and care for yourself through it and send forgiveness to whomever forgiveness is for. I'm just saying that that probably isn't happening in the moment. Remember, this is moment to moment, day by day. Be not worry. Be not anger. Be not fear. Again and again and again and again. So all of what I just said actually brings us to being humble. Remembering and understanding that we're all just humans. I'm a human, you're a human, I am as you are. We all mess up. They mess up. I mess up. You mess up. All of us mess up. All of us have done horrible things, if we like to know it, think about it or not. Right? All of us have. We've all said things that were cruel. We've all done things that were not good. We've all do them in real time still, especially if we're in that worry and fear and anger and we start fixed managing, controlling everything. All of us have some kind of trigger that kind of kickstarts that. And that is a codependent thought pattern, habit, and actions, okay? To fix, manage, and control everything. And it derives out of the worry, the anger, the fears. And it has been going on for generations, folks, and 98% of us all have some form of characteristic of codependency. And codependency is not just on based with you and your partner, your spouse. It is within all relationships. Parents, siblings, children, co-workers, friends, all of them. All of us have some form of it in our relationships. And one of the best things we can do is to understand our triggers. This is a form of being humble, to know thyself. To know thyself as an equal to everyone else. To know thyself and give myself forgiveness as I forgive you. To know myself as a right-sized human and not a overextended ego. All of that is to be humble. It is good to identify our triggers as to what kind of kickstarts us into that fixed, manage, and control that's based out of fear. I'll share mine with you. Mine, whenever I might, whoa, okay, Courtney, you're trying to fix, manage, and control. Let's bring it back. Let's get humble. Let's trust. And we're going to talk about trust at the very beginning, or very end, I mean. Let's get humble. What's going on? What are we afraid of? And that's because I've noticed my thought patterns, habits, and behaviors. I notice what I'm noticing about myself, and then I take responsibility for myself. My trigger that will always set me off, and then maybe I'll catch it within that 20 minutes, maybe that 2 hours, depending on the time frame, maybe 2 days, which is the longest I will ever go anymore, when, heck, I went a straight 20-something years doing it every day, so I'm doing pretty good if you credit to me, compassion for myself and others. Mine will always be if my home life, if there's too much going on and it seems chaotic and out of control, like right now there's medical stuff happening with my husband, medical stuff happening with my dog, stuff that is just not normally present, and it's, very out of my control in many ways. And when it starts to pile on, then that fix, manage, and control kicks in, and I gotta fix, manage, and control every little thing. My home is, in chaos and in unfamiliar territories. Let's say that. That's mine. That's not everybody's. And this is why I'm bringing it up. I'm sharing, I'm being transparent with you about mine because that's not everybody's. Some people, it's definitely finance. Finances can trigger people into fixed management control, every little detail, big time. That's still fear, worry, possibly a bit of anger, depending on if purchases were made. Many people's, it's finances. Some, it's uh, other like work aspects. Let's bring it out of the home and out of finances, but into like a work environment. If the work environment seems chaotic and nuts, that can seep into fixed management control, not just at work, but into all of our daily life. We bring it home with us, is what we're saying. We treat others this way, right? Many people that are bosses, they run into this. That, okay, whoa, work happened and work is crazy and we have to implement all these new things and we got a time crunch. I am micromanaging all these flippin' humans. Right? The bosses that do that out of fear, out of worry, out of anger, that then seeps into they bring it home with them. So I'm saying all of us have some kind of trigger that starts that motion. It is up to us to be responsible and stop it. Stop it in that moment, in that day, whenever we realize this is what's going on with us. Be not worry. Be not anger. Be not fear. Be humble. Be humble. When we are in the fixed managing control of things, that is because our ego is in fear. And our ego starts to inflate and inflate and inflate and inflate. Protection, 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 protection. And so it's not really us, that the whole of us, the completeness of us, that is doing all this stuff. It's really the ego. And that's why we will see in this world so many egos talking to egos and combating other egos. It's egos with egos. And it's because the humbleness has to come in and deflate that ego and get it right sized again. Because there's nothing wrong about the ego. It is a beautiful form of self-protection and awareness. For, okay, I'm angry because something is maybe off here. It's a sign. It's a part of being aware of who and what you are and what's going on around you. That's the ego. It's a beautiful, beautiful aspect of being a human. But when it gets inflated, being humble brings it back down. Being humble, we can actually, it doesn't have to take an outside influence to do that. Usually it does until we get into the practice of humbling ourselves. Humbling ourselves is going out into nature. Humbling ourselves is being honest with ourselves. That's why it's the next one. Humbling ourselves is the acknowledgement that we are, regardless if we're the boss, regardless of what's going on, regardless if all this stuff is out of our control, regardless of that, we are here. We are here. We are with all of this. We are moving along with it. We are equal to it. We are humbled by all that we witness. We are humbled by all that we observe. We smile at it. We thank it. So that's another aspect that I wanted to ask you. With a hand to heart. Breathe in. Exhale with a smile. Do you believe that you could start smiling at life and be grateful for it? Be honest in your work. Just be honest. Period. Hands down. Be honest. And this goes into what we've been talking a lot about here at Stars of the Morning Light. The authenticity. It starts with being honest with yourself. Authenticity. And I'm waiting and striving for the day that all humans are feeling comfortable in their skin, comfortable in their surroundings, comfortable in the completeness of who they are to live their authentic self at all times. No matter the location, the people, the place, the things around, what have you, at all times. That I'm excited and waiting for that. That's, that's what I'm, yeah, that's truth. I'm so excited for that. I'm so excited. Anyways, we've talked about that a lot of times here at Stars of the Morning Light. Check out some other videos. But it starts with being honest. And then with yourself, and then carrying that honesty forward. And when we're honest with ourselves, well, then we can move into being humble again. And when we're honest with ourselves, we can realize a whole lot of our fears are imagined. When we're honest with ourselves, we can go, you know what? I'm not an angry being. I'm sure a solution will show. When we're honest with ourselves, we can say, wow, I'm worrying about everything except the one thing that I need to worry about or think about, right? It's how it works. Honest with self first, and then we give that out to others. Regardless of the consequences, when I speak with others privately, it often comes down to that people are afraid to be honest with themselves and others. So in their work, in their life, they are afraid to be honest and be their authentic self because of fears of possible consequences. And so fears come in three categories. They really do. Every kind of fear can be under these three categories. Okay? The first is actual true survival. True survival. And that is still on the table for many people. True survival. So that's a fear. The second is lack. Now, lack is definitely, and all of these can be imagined or truly happening. Many times it's imagined. So there could be true survival. You're living out of your car. True survival. You don't know how to put food on the table. Tonight, tomorrow night, 3 nights from now. That is true survival. And it could be really happening, but it can also be that in our minds we start worrying about if this bill comes or that bill comes. We can start worrying about how are we going to survive with things that are not necessarily happening in the moment. Just the fears are there. Second is lack. And lack is somewhat associated with survival, but not truly. Lack is the fear of not getting what we want or losing what we have. So lack, which also could be true. We just lost a bunch of stuff. That could be very true. Or we're going for a job interview and we are very afraid that we're not going to get the job. So we're in fear of not getting what we want. So it could be true. It could also be imagined. That we're just projecting all of it. Third is rejection, which is hands down what seems to be the biggest fear for most people. And it's because rejection goes into all things. Not just like partners, relationships. I mean, it could be rejection of that job. It could be rejection of some troll on a comment. It could be, I mean, anything. You didn't get as many likes. I mean, rejection now is, that has exploded, especially in the past 20 years. So, when most people are talking to me about their fears of being honest with others, including themselves, and living more of an authentic life, um, those fears are right there. And oftentimes, like I said, beloveds, rejection, the consequence of rejection, because people, for some reason, in the same sentence will say, well, I'm afraid of the consequences. And then I'll usually say, what consequences? Like, actually, nothing's happened yet, by the way, but what consequences? And their mouths will just start pouring out so much rejection, fears of the rejection. So, in today's world, what I've noticed is that we associate consequence and rejection as the same thing as well. So, I just want to point that out to, if that's you, take note of that within yourself. Still, though, the fears might be there. The fears might be true, they might be imagined. When we get honest with ourselves and everyone else, the benefits, the benefits of releasing the trap door, the benefits of the expression of your true self, and when there you meet others that do accept that and love that and enjoy that, the benefits of when we are honest with ourselves and others in our life, our work, all of it, honest, the benefits, I can guarantee you, even if you don't believe me right now, I can guarantee you the benefits outweigh any of the previous fears. I completely outweigh them. And being honest in your life, in your work, in all of your relations, being honest like that, be honest, being, so the action of being honest with yourself and with others, that action opens up so many doors. That action actually gets you through, oftentimes, those dark nights of the soul, as Jung would call them. It gets you through truly identifying, what are my triggers? It gets you through knowing and understanding and loving and accepting yourself completely. Which also will lead to trust. We're going to, like I said, we're going to get there at the very end. Be compassionate to yourself and others. This one is huge. It's it's at the end. It's the last one. They save the best for the last. Be compassionate to yourself and others. Self first, by the way. Self first, because we live in the world of judgment. Third dimensional living experience, fifth dimensional living experience still has all the judgment going on, right? Judgment, judgment. We begin to lay it down as we anchor into the seventh dimensional living experience. So, compassion to self. Yeah. Doesn't the sweetness of that? I'm really going to be honest here because we just talked about being honest. The sweetness of having compassion for yourself. It's as if you're giving yourself permission to be human. You're giving yourself permission to lay things down like the worries, the anger, the fears. Have compassion for yourself is giving yourself permission to be. And then when you're giving that compassion to others, you're giving all that to them as well. I'm going to lay down my judgment of you. I'm going to lay down my worries, my fears, my anxieties, my anger towards you. I'm going to lay that down. I give you permission to be. I give you permission to be human, just like me. Oh wow, we're human. We're human because we're human first. It's beautiful. That is the sweetness of all things grand. I don't know how to express it any other way. And if you are working towards alleviating yourself of more of the third dimensional living, if you're working towards that, then having and practicing and adopting be compassionate to yourself and others is, I don't even know how to express how important it is. That is compassion for self and others is the energy of more fifth dimensional living experience. It's when we can actually smile at the world, smile at circumstances, and say thank you because we've been able to give ourselves the permission to be human and let go of a lot of the fears, the worries, the insecurities, the doubts, the self-sabotaging, the hesitation, all of it. The list can go on and on and on when we're compassionate to ourselves. And imagine if that's being held up with being honest. That's a huge difference that I do notice with many people that are practicing compassion. It's not being backed up with honesty. Being honest with self, being honest with others. It actually, in many ways, tends to look like, well, they're allowing themselves to be more of a doormat. Just to get by. Just to make this cage feel a little bit less cramped. Well, where's the honesty in that? Be not worry. Be not anger. Be not fear. Be humble. Be honest in your work. Be compassionate to yourself and others. And all of this, beloveds, is a way to build and gain complete trust. I will say that again. All of these precepts are a way to build and gain complete trust. Well, hallelujah to that. Love and trust are the same thing. Hallelujah to trust. Could you imagine if you trusted all things? You trust yourself implicitly. You trust all things because you trust yourself. Trust. Imagine. If you trusted, there would be no worry. If you trusted, there wouldn't really be anger. Somebody could offend you and it would just be like, okay. Roll right over you and smile. Okay, because you're witnessing it. You're detached in ways from that form of energy invading your essence. Be not fear. Well, fear and trust cannot live within the same dwelling. They can't. Fear and trust. I know this, we live in a world of polarity and duality and whatnot, but fear and trust are so far on the opposite scales that they do not live in the same temple. They do not. They can't. And so before we go further on, I do want to emphasize, here's the biggest distinction, beloveds, of am I working on this stuff? Am I not working on this stuff? Where am I with trust? Because all of us are still walking around and bumping into all the other bubbles and experiencing life. All of us are still doing that. The difference is the duration. The duration as in, how long of a time period are you allowing fear to capsize you? How long of a time period are you allowing worry to dictate your actions? How long are you allowing anger to build and build and build without being addressed? with being honest with yourself? How long of a duration? So, if you had met Courtney, myself, 2 decades ago, if you had known me, especially in my youth, my very young youth, my young adult youth, if you had met me through those years, I was just pure anger. Just pure anger, just sifting out of me wherever I went. Pure anger. I was just angry. I was disappointed with all humans, people, places, and things. And my disappointment came out in representation of anger. So that girl lived with it day in and day out. She knew, she didn't know a difference. So this invites you, all of this invites you to experience different. We only know what we know until we experience different. Because we don't fully know somebody until the experience is attached. So we only know what we know until we experience different. And so this is inviting you to gift yourself an opportunity to experience a bit different, because I have a feeling you'll really enjoy it and you'll want to pursue it. That girl didn't know any different. And then at some point, she had to get really honest with herself. And I'm speaking for myself. I had to get really honest with myself. It's because something humbled me. Something humbled me, right? But thank goodness it did. That's beautiful. I live every day in gratitude of it. Thank goodness that it did. And since then, over all these years, these decades of therapy, learning different modalities, studying myself, allowing myself to make different choices, to experience different, giving myself the permission to love myself entirely and accept myself entirely, and to do those small things over and over and over and over again to build that trust by showing up for myself. I've done these things, so I'm not asking you to do anything that I haven't done. The biggest aspect that you can notice as to, like, where am I within this? How am I feeling out? Where am I? Because us humans, we love to know progress. We do. We love to know progress. Remember to be compassionate to yourself and others, and this is why I'm putting this here. We like to understand our progress. We like to identify our progress. And so it matters on duration of time within the context of this. So if the old Courtney just didn't know anything different other than being angry 24/7, 7 days a week, the whole time, well then, bit by bit by bit, it needed to start getting shorter. Okay, I'm not angry for 7 days straight, but okay, I'm only angry for 5. And then I'm only angry for 3 days straight. And beloveds, I hung out at 3 days for a very long time. It's like I could not get over the hump, per se. I could not love myself completely to let go of the anger entirely. And I felt real comfortable with my security blanket of anger, worries, and fears around that 3-day mark. And I hung out there for quite some time as I continued to show up for myself to build that trust. So then, okay, 3 days down, we're going down, we're going down. So now in life, it's not like there's things that, like I said, don't present fears, don't present worries, don't present anger. Here's an example. Just recently I did our taxes. We owed this year. We have not owed since the first year we were married because we messed things up. We owed. Okay. So immediately though, fear, anger, worry, it comes in because I'm human. And this world is not easy, right? The tasks that we still take and the environments that we still live in, it's not so easy. Okay, so that comes in. I identify it. Within moments, I identify it. But then I have compassion for myself and I allow myself to actually feel those for a moment because they're genuine. They're genuine feelings. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried. Where's this money coming from? Yeah, I'm angry because for us in this instance, it had to do with human error at an HR level at my husband's work. Human error. So yeah, a little angry. Yeah, fear, right? This is the government. So they're all present. I allow myself to acknowledge that and to feel that for a minute and go, okay, but I'm responsible for my feelings. I'm responsible for my actions. I'm responsible for what happens within me. So after about 20 minutes or so, I just accept it as it is. I'm not going to really be able to change this. I'm sure a solution will present itself. I'm sure things will be fixed as we go along. I lay it down. I lay it down. So, from a girl who, man, this would have been like, I would have stormed the castle if I was young and that happened. Um, to then, okay, I'm gonna worry about this and be fearful of this for 2 weeks, 5 days, 3 days. Now, okay, 20 minutes. That's enough because I this does not need to live inside of me. It does not need to live inside of me. I've acknowledged it. And I am human, so I'm going to have these feelings. I'm going to do whatever actions I do need to do for the resolve. I live without fear. Be not worry. Be not anger. Be not fear. Be humble. Be honest in your work. Be compassionate to yourself and others. And sometimes that compassion is the acknowledgement of things in this world are not easy. But the duration of our resentment, our victim mentality, all of it, that's where the difference lies. It truly is the difference. Now, I bring this up because I said people do like to kind of look at where they're progressing. Eventually, beloveds, you won't be doing that either, because that is also another form of judgment of self. How far have I progressed? How far have I progressed? Where am I at with this? And oftentimes it's self-judgment that comes in, like, let's say something does catapult you, like, whoa, a big bill came in. Whoa, we owe taxes. Whoa. And you've been riding cloud nine, as they would say, and then all of a sudden this sinks you down. Oh, somebody just broke up with me. Something just happened here. Whatever it may be, right? That it just plummets you down back into the fear and the worry and the heartache of third dimensional living experience. When that happens, let's not judge ourselves. I'm bringing up the aspect of duration of time so you can acknowledge you have control over how long you allow that to penetrate your being. You don't have to allow it to continue forth. We can be not worry, be not anger, be not fear. It's a choice. And now, if you were like I was, because I am as you are, and you've been working on these things, and the younger version of you, even if it was just a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever, give yourselves props and cheers and gratitude that if you went from being angry for a week long, for spoiling your whole weekend because you're obsessing about something that's making you angry and worried, because you're in fear, if you just ruined your whole weekend, or if that's your personality type, and now it's like, okay, it might just ruin my Friday night, not my Saturday and Sunday as well, it's ruining my Friday night. Give yourself that beautiful compassion because you're doing it, and the permission of being human and evolving and ascending into that full compassion. That's amazing. That's wonderful. And all the while, when you really do these precepts, be not worry, be not anger, be not fear, be humble, be honest in your work, be compassionate to yourself and others. Each time you say that to yourself, you bring it into yourself, you bring it into your heart space, you do it while you're cleansing yourself in the shower, just for today, just for this moment. Every time you do it, and you acknowledge what you're thinking, feeling, observing, experiencing within and around, every time you do that and you're choosing to lay down the worry, lay down the anger, lay down the fear, open yourself up to being humble and acknowledging that you are one with all things, to be honest with yourself and others, live authentically in that compassion for all. When you do that, and you repeat, 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 you're consistent, I can guarantee you are showing up for yourself and you're building that trust within. You're building that trust within. And when that trust is solidified and the foundation is there and everything is being held up by that inner trust, the trust of self, you know thyself. You trust thyself. You're humble within yourself. You have compassion for yourself. When that trust is built, that is when our experiences really start changing. That is when, yeah, for 20 minutes, I'm going to feel this. I'm going to acknowledge this. I'm going to understand that I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm in fear, what have you, for about 20 minutes. And then I'm going to let it go. Because I trust myself. I trust myself. Imagine that now in your world. You're living as yourself. You're honest with yourself and everybody. You have compassion for yourself and others for when mistakes happen, pitfalls happen, the world starts caving in. What have you? Compassion for self and others. Because we're all just human. You're living without the worry, fears, anger. That goes into all the doubt, the judgments, the hesitancy, the self-sabotage, all of it, because trust. That's when the expansion of your luminary self, the essence of your totality, and the completeness of who you are, as you are in this world but not of this world, your complete essence can walk with you because it's no longer afraid of you. I love you all so dearly. This was just a little message that I do hope helps everyone, and let me know in the comments if it has. This again is the Sui Reiki Precepts. Use them. Actually, before I let you go, I want to give you an example of how do we use this in our daily lives in practical terms. I'm glad I remembered this. And if you hear some creaking of steps and whatnot, it's because my husband just came home as I'm still recording. Let me finish off with this. I also hold myself up to these precepts. I don't just use them. I hold myself up to them all the time. So let's say there is a situation, I'm going to use an actual real situation. I'm not going to use any names. Everyone has, this process was so long ago. Everyone is covered in love and forgiveness and grace, So I'm going to use this though, because it's what's coming into my mind. This was a few years ago. I was teaching a class at a shop. And during that class, I was the only one there, and I was representing the owner of the shop. As in, if people wanted to buy something, they would have to kind of pay it through me, and I would write it down and get it to the owner, right? Well, as I'm teaching this class, during breaks, people would walk around and look at items in the shop and whatnot. And I found out, I think a day or two later, that someone stole something. Um, so I had to address that. And it was very complicated because are we sure it was them? Yeah, it was them. No one had else been in that shop since that day. I know for a fact that they were looking at it, playing with it, deciding if they wanted to buy it or not, what have you. And for some reason, they put it in their bag thinking that they would pay for it later without telling me. That is called theft. By the way, beloveds, that is called theft. So when this first hit though, yeah, a lot of emotions because that makes me look poorly, right? I'm the one that's kind of there as not just the facilitator, but running things that day. Everything's going through me. Questionable now, which the shop owner trusting me, right? So things had to be addressed. And through this process, though, I put all of the communication between me and the shop owner, between me and me, right? Talking to myself, me and the person that took the crystal or whatever it was, that person, back over to this person, over that all of the communication, all of the steps that had to be taken, I ran them through this. I did. I ran them through this because it became very apparent at some point that this person, at least currently in this time frame, is actually not healthy. They're running a little bit of a dangerous line, as in how they talk to others, how they treat others. Now it's come down to theft. So I had to make that very big decision to kind of remove them from certain aspects of classes, groups, teaching for that time frame. And I had to have that talk. So hard, right? But I ran it through all these things. Be not worry. Okay, I'm not going to worry about if the shop owner is thinking that I'm something I'm not. I'm not going to worry that this piece is not going to get back to its original shop owner. Or that payment's not going to be made. I'm not going to worry about that stuff. I'm not going to worry about how odd this moves dynamics. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to be in anger because clearly I and others have witnessed there's a lot going on with this individual. There's a lot going on with this individual, right? I'm not actually going to be in anger because I'm practicing compassion for another. I'm not going to be in anger because I'm not in fear over this. I'm going to take the action steps appropriate. Do I remain humble? Be humble. Yes. That is how I had to communicate through every form of communication. There were 4 different people in this scenario that I did have to communicate with, though. 4. The owner of the item, the shop owner, the one who stole it, and myself. And why do I put myself in there? So I can remain humble. So I can be honest with myself. Because that first instant was going to be my ego was going to go, whoa, somebody stole on my shift. Somebody stole on my watch. Like, whoa, ego. Because that's pride. That's ego. That's fear. That's anger. Oh, no. We got to humble that. Let's get that right sized again. Let's look at the whole situation. Let's look at the whole event. Let's look at all the things that were said and done. And acknowledge that we're all just people. Acknowledge that we're all just people. Acknowledge that that slipped through my eyes as I was teaching. Acknowledge that all these people have parts. All these people have different thoughts and concerns and ideas and concepts. And actually, out of this was a really good thing, because certain aspects of how the wholesaler and the shop and other employees and stuff like that had to kind of operate. So, be honest though. I had to be honest with myself. Because for me, I had to be honest with the idea that this is my responsibility. I do have to talk to my student. I do have to talk to all these people. I have to be honest with myself in how I go about it humbly. When I go about it humbly, like time frame, am I still in anger? Is my ego still huge? No, let's be honest with yourself. Let's get honest of what I want to do too, as this has now affected a few different communities. How do we handle this? What's the honest aspect here, the honest of how to handle this that is good for everyone involved? Again, into compassionate for self and others. First, compassionate to self. When I use that for myself, I first compassion for self and others, right? Be compassionate to self and others. I use that to then go back through all of those. Be not worry. Be not anger. Be not fearful. Be humble. Be honest. I use that as my basis. Where am I at with worry? Where am I at with anger? Where am I at with fear? And if I'm in it, compassion to self. If I'm in it, compassion to self. Give yourself some more compassion. Cover that ego with compassion to become more humble. So I go down the list. In my mind, I go down the list. Where am I at? Where am I at? And then when I get to the be compassionate to self and others, that is my guide to go through that list again. Go through the list again. Where are you genuinely? Where are you really at self? Do you need some more time to wrap all of this in compassion? That is how I use this in practical, everyday terms, in conversations with others, in my work, in my general, just walking around life, my general life, just out there being, right? In my verb of be, and my presence in action. That's how I use these. So I have been doing this for so long that it's not just like every day I repeat them and I hope that they work. This is my tools of checking. Where are you at, Courtney? What are your feelings? What are your thoughts? What are your actions? What are your words? What is your presence today? What is your presence in this moment? And if I need to, and depending on time frame, experience, situation, if it needs to be covered more in compassion for self and others, then I do so. Because this is my benchmark. This is my point of reference. These are the tools that I use every single day to, well, I anchored into 5D many, many years ago. I am now anchoring into 7. Because compassion is the energy of the 5th dimensional living experience. Compassion is the energy of the 5th dimensional living experience. There is still judgment. And the beautiful thing about the judgment in 5D is that we witness it, we notice it, but we do not integrate it because we are practicing compassion. So, beloveds, I will genuinely leave you with that. Build that foundation of trust. Use these Reiki precepts for everyday living so then you too can be a life in meditation. Reiki is a living meditation. All right. Cheers, guys. I love y'all. Have a great week. I will see you again. And Edgar Casey Life Skill Studies with the change of the polls and all that's going on is going to be released soon. Bye, y'all.